Welcome. Glad you're here. So I'm going to do another reading. I'm thinking of this now as like visionary tarot. So using the symbolism of the tarot to help us imagine what's unthinkable in the world as we're currently experiencing it. Because until we can imagine what we've been taught is impossible, it's hard. Well, we don't believe that we can have it. So I'm going to use the same 3 decks. And I have, like the past time, I pre-shuffled them. But this time I'm going to draw the cards here right now. So the first deck is the Smith-Waite deck, which is the first deck to have images by Pamela Coleman Smith on the what we call the pip cards, or the minor arcana. So let's just see what comes out. And looking back on the previous video, I didn't quite do what I intended. I had more to say about the 9 of Pentacles. And I forgot. But my aspiration is to share the whole of how that image strikes me. I had a hard time accepting the traditional meaning of the 9 of Pentacles because that woman seems so aristocratic to me. And I resist the idea that I have to become isolated and elite and think that I'm superior to others in order to have what I want. So let's see what card wants to, that's too many. And almost flipped. Wants to help us vision what we want. Oh, okay. 2 came out. I've got the Lovers and the King of Swords. Let's be clear. I just need 1 card to help us vision what our hearts most truly want. So, okay, the card that came out is the 7 of Swords. This is a really interesting card. And I just want to point out, that's Pamela Coleman Smith's signature right there. So she may have just been a graphic artist, but she considered what she did something that she wanted to put her name on. So this is a really fun card. It came up in a reading that I watched today, and I found myself saying, stealing the weapons of the enemy so they can't hurt anybody. And so one of the things about this card is that women are often accused of dishonesty and dishonorableness because now certainly the traditional meaning of reading of this is that this is an enemy soldier and he's sneaking into the other camp at night and disarming them without aggression, but with stealth. And so it's interpreted traditionally as being underhand, and or that someone maybe is being underhanded with us, depending on the context. And you get obviously swords are military, and I really feel this is interesting. When I think I mentioned in the last video that I worked with that book, 78 Degrees of Wisdom, and the author, she just said what's true. The symbolism all comes from the Golden Dawn, and in the major arcana, it's very traditional European through the Middle Ages. I think it traces back. The earliest deck is the Tarocchi deck, and that was in Italy. A noble family in Italy in around the time of the Renaissance, I think. But it came from a much older tradition. And so they point out that on the magician card, there's all 4 symbols for all 4 of what they consider to be elements. So it's swords, wands, heart, cups, and pentacles. And those were all tools used by ceremonial magicians, or alchemists, or people who are in that Western occult or Western mystery tradition, the European esoteric tradition, which co-evolved with Christianity. And Rachel Pollack points out that some of the interpretations, some of the way that we interpret the minor arcana is partly based on the symbols we use for those elements. And they really, lots of ums I'm noticing, but that's just life, I guess. So what Europeans meant by elements is literally, we use it to refer to the forces of nature, rain and the ocean and wind. Those are all called the elements. But they really believed that these were physical substances that were the four building blocks of everything that we see. That was the European belief that that comes down in our esoteric traditions. And so the swords were just a symbol for the element of air. And they're usually also mapped on the four directions, northeast, south, and west. And even in the European traditions, different traditions map it differently, which is interesting. There's a parallel with that with the Turtle Island native medicine wheel traditions. Different nations map different colors and different directions on and different meanings. But often they're very similar, but just mapped in different ways. So I won't try to map this. I tend to see air as in the east, where the sun rises and newness and stuff like that. But that's but you can map it however resonates and makes sense to you. But so looking at this from the eyes of the world we want to bring in, or what I call our archaic future, the values that are deeply built into our social neurology. We're social mammals. We're animals designed to create societies, to create social structures that support our beingness. And we're not fully healthy without doing that. And so, interestingly, for example, many of the 10 Commandments are kept by all social mammals, like wolves and monkeys and apes. You don't need to be commanded to do many of the things that are in the 10 Commandments. So it's really interesting that we're being commanded to do something that our bodies are designed naturally to do. So what puts us in a position where we have to be told to do what our bodies are designed to do? So I'll just leave that question. So that's my cat wanting to be let out. I apologize she's teaching me about boundaries, actually, but she's just been given a bunch of good food. She's got a full belly, and it's food that she hasn't had in a while, so she's not going to be, hopefully, too bullying. She's kind of bullying me. My cat walks all over me, so I'm learning. But I let her. Obviously, she used to climb me like a tree when she was a kitten, and I knew that it was a bad idea to let her do that, but it made me laugh every time. So now when she's hungry, she jumps and she stomps on me. So I'm learning. But anyway, so in looking at this from the eyes of the archaic future, from the eyes of the violation of free will, and the abuse of coercive power, this is, and I'm going to say ninja, and I don't mean that in a culturally appropriative way. I mean that in an honoring way, because when the one thing the samurai complained about the ninjas, they weren't honorable. They, they snuck around, they used stealth, they walked around in the dark, and they used any means possible. And the same was actually a complaint of the British in the American Revolutionary War, the war that created the United States, is that, they'd hide behind trees, which was cowardly. The muskets were still fairly new as warfare, and you were supposed to stand and be a target in a bright red coat. The opponents of the rebels, the guerrilla warfare was invented. Probably not invented, but it was the first war by a nation that was that was waged in a guerrilla warfare fashion of slipping away and hiding. And a lot of General Washington's tactic was simply to keep an army in the field and by stealth. And so I see this as, warfare. There's a beautiful card in the next deck that's like defend to the end the worthwhile. And so this is using any means to defend the worthwhile. There's no dishonor in using stealth when someone's abusing their power and when someone is challenging things that you love and that are support the aliveness within and all around you and us. So this is a card of, and it also can be a warning that there really are forces out there who are using stealth as well, even if they're claiming to be honorable. So this is be aware of the power of stealth, either being used against you or as a tool for furthering what you most deeply value when you're aligned with the good of yourself, which is. So there's a discussion out there about the galactic shadow as being a struggle between service to self versus service to other. And that's a false dichotomy. That's a dichotomy from the perspective of those who advocate service to self. And what's false about that is that our bodies are designed such that our bodies are designed to detect mutual service to others. So that's the word I would add. It's service to self versus mutual service to other. And adding the word mutual in there makes service to self, service to other, the most efficient way to also serve yourself. So service to other is also service to self, because cooperation is the most optimal way for beings to meet their needs. And you see it throughout Gaia. I call us Gaia ourselves. Throughout, it's not just social mammals that cooperate. I've successfulully cooperated with dragonflies who needed my help. And you see it all over YouTube. When I was in school, one of the things I studied or am fascinated by is animal behavior from a biological point of view. And at that time, we were taught that only humans were altruistic, and they were still not sure why. And I'm pretty sure that Stephen Jay Gould, who wrote a book called The Selfish Gene, is still not quite sure about altruism and how it works. But you can teach computers one of the basic rules of sociability, at least within Gaia ourselves. And there's this game called The Prisoner's Dilemma, where two people who are accused of committing a crime are in two separate rooms or did commit a crime together. And they're trying to get one to rat out the other. And if one rats out the other, they get a reduced sentence and they get a much stricter sentence. If they both rat out each other, they both get a really strict sentence. And if neither of them rats the other out, they go free. So big payoff for cooperation and middle payoff for betrayal when the other cooperates, and punishment if both, the worst punishment if they both betray each other. And if you let computers do it iteratively, they develop this rule of whatever the other person does or did the last time, you do this time. So basically tit for tat, or I like to say gift for gift. So if the other person cooperates, the next time you cooperate, and it doesn't take long before you both cooperate. And I see that throughout the living planet that I'm on. Even trees cooperate. Mycelium, which are mushrooms, are a network of cooperation throughout forests. So I don't know how I got there. Service to self and service to other. So it's the thing is, it's like a mathematical optimization problem. I don't want to get too techy, but those are problems where you're not just finding the right answer, but the best answer. And so life has discovered that the best answer is to cooperate unless someone is not cooperating. So we have service to self detectors. Humans in our natural default state offer goodwill, but look for betrayal. And that's what I call mutual service to other. That when we find someone betraying, then we respond with self-protection and don't. Sorry, I didn't make that noise. And don't continue to cooperate with someone who is who's stealing from us. So if you just add that one word, then service to self makes no sense. Service to self is not the optimum solution ever, if cooperation is possible. So you're actually suboptimal by coming from a service to self perspective if the possibility of mutual service to other is available. So I think that's that's that card. And now let's draw again from this is Alana Fairchild's Sacred Rebels deck. And the artwork is by Autumn Sky, who's just an amazing artist. So this card will be for what we can do to bring in the new. What attitudes can we bring ourselves? And okay, this is a really good word. It's a good one. So this is a card that, I got to be careful with that, I guess. This is art. So it's be in the world, not of the world. And the problem that I have, I love that idea, but the problem that I have is that this is again the resistance or the denigration. I was raised Catholic in the early 60s, and I was a child in the 60s and a teenager in the 70s. And we were taught that it was that pleasing to God to do what they call denigrate the flesh or mortify the flesh. And you can see this right in the European origin myth or creation myth, which I now call the tree of good egg and bad egg. But what happened when they took a bite out of the tree of knowledge, when they got just a little bit of knowledge, is they felt ashamed of their bodies. They knew that the Lord, or I don't want to use that word, they knew that the person who is narcissistically abusing their power, wrath, vengeance, jealous, how many of the deadly sins is this guy going to commit? And before this powerful being even came back into the garden, they were hiding because they knew that he was going to despise their nakedness. And I know that some people interpret that to mean that they were either able to have sex or that they'd had sex, and that it's about sexuality. But he clothed them. Actually, I really don't want to repeat this. The way he clothed them was brutal and disgusting and left them covered in an animal's blood. And then he cursed not just them, but all of their children. These are not the acts of a good being. These are not the acts of a service to other being. This is a petty, narcissistic tyrant. So that's the problem I have with be in the world, not of the world. But what I take from this card, and I think it's a really good suggestion, is be in the world, but be of yourself. Be of yourself most deeply. Don't let the world change your core values, your soul, the core essence of your being. And don't let the world convince you that your good isn't good. And so I think that's kind of what I'm trying to do with these readings is, be in the world, but be of myself most truly and deeply. And so it's kind of, let me get my finger back up there, put these two up. I don't know what so that's a really interesting, don't let someone accuse you of dishonesty or dishonorableness when stealth is your best option. And also, this is a very, like I said, this is a yin way of disarming, rather than knocking it out of someone's hand. Just sneak off with it in the night, but also beware of people sneaking off with your power in the night. Okay, so our last card is from, again, the Fairies Oracle. And note that it's not plural, it's possessive. It's plural possessive. The oracle belonging to the fairies, written by the fairies themselves by means of the artist and the woman who wrote the book in conjunction with fairies. So let's see, what card wants to work with us today? That's a very, very interesting card to come up. So the card is honesty. And I find this image, this being naming themselves or himself honesty. He's not, I wouldn't say austere, but he's certainly not corpulent, right? Wow, that's a big word. Fat. He's skinny. He's like almost, you can almost see his bones, like his skin, his body is almost so transparent that you can see the structure underneath it expressed at the skin. There's like nothing hidden. He's not wearing clothes that hide his honesty. I mean, that's another, you could say naked honesty. So this, story of the Garden of Eden is like this deity despised our honesty, despised the honest fact that we are animals, that we're social mammals, and that we live in a material world that has predation in it. It has things that are competing to survive, but it also has such beauty and such love, and being attached to what we love. Our bodies are designed to do that, and that's beautiful. It's not harmful to us. It's only harmful to people who are threatened by our being stronger together, the way that this finger is so much weaker without the whole hand. And that's who we are. And when I look in this being's eyes, there's such earnestness and also a little sadness, like knowing that that honesty sometimes hurts, and that sometimes the most honest thing you can do is considered to be dishonorable by someone else. Like you don't want to fight. Let's just disarm. Let's just take the destructive things that are harming what we love away. And that hurts our soul a little bit. And so it's hard to put all three together because I've got to cover this. I mean, it's such a silly game, isn't it? Let's see if I can get a card to cover it. So these three together tell a very interesting story. That stealth is sometimes used against us by those who are overpowering us or who don't mean us well, but that also sometimes stealth is the best tactic, is the best way to, taking things head on is confronting bullies where they're strong, and sometimes supplanting rather than confronting is is the best way to be in the world, but be most strongly ourselves, and that it takes a naked honesty to do the kind of change that I think needs to be done. That the kind of change that makes the world our bodies are designed to create together as a society, as a kinship group. So I think what a really profound collection of cards. And so I think I better stop there, or my phone's going to shut off and I'll lose it. So thank you for being here. Glad you're here, and hopefully, I hope to see you again.